Good evening. My name is Vicki Smith, President of the City School District of Albany's Board of Education, and on behalf of the board, I welcome you to our meeting tonight. I am joined in person by, let me start at the right, far right, Ms. Jennifer Whitson, who is the Secretary to the Superintendent, and she's filling in tonight for our board clerk, Ms. Jetta Ray Gale. Hassan Elmanyawi, member. Ellen Krejci, member. Secretary and member, Dr. Chatur. Member Tabitha Wilson. Member Demers Mann. Also, good evening, Superintendent Hochreiter. And also Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance, Joe Karras. I also see our legal counsel in the audience, Mr. Jeff Honeywell. And also, we always love having Assistant Superintendent for Assessment, Accountability, and Technology Innovation, Mr. Kent Baker, who is, yes, I got it right this time, yes. So welcome, everyone. The meeting is being live streamed, and the instructions to view our meetings are available at albanyschools.org/BOE. We will show the relevant slides and documents in the virtual meeting screen and here in the room. With that introduction, we invite those of you who choose to join us as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And given that tonight is a special meeting, we will not have a superintendent's report or highlights from the district. We'll move right into our public comment period, and I believe Ms. Lorraine Williams-Clark, is that correct? Yes. If you would take a seat, and I'll have you start in just a moment. So during this time, we do want to hear from our members of our public. We always welcome input from the community about the decisions we are making. We will allow up to 3 minutes per person. If there are more comments that we can accommodate in 3 minutes, or actually the total time, 30 minutes, we may extend that length or alternatively establish a second public comment period later in the meeting. The public should also know that we accept comments in writing, virtual also, and by voicemail. Comments that are not in person must be made at least 6 hours prior to the meeting to give us time to collect and verify those emails. Written comments must be limited to 400 words and voicemail comments to 3 minutes. All comments must include the commenter's name and place of residence. We do not accept anonymous comments. If you would like to submit a voicemail or written comment for a future meeting, we encourage you to go to Addressing the Board information section at albanyschools.org/BOE. And you will see the instructions for how to submit your comments. We ask all commenters to keep in mind that information about individual students and specific district staff cannot be shared. Not only is that a violation of privacy, but every student and every staff member deserves to know that the concerns about them will not be aired in public. And we do have one individual who is commenting tonight. And if I think I got your name right, Ms. Williams-Clark, correct? All righty. So please go ahead and proceed.
So I'm going to ignore them a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, one more thing. So our board secretary, Dr. Chatur, will kind of indicate where you are and look up occasionally in case your timing might be a little off from his. So okay. Who wins if that's the case, Dr. Chatur?
Well, I already started my timer, so
okay, just kidding. All righty. So please proceed and welcome.
Hi, I live at 897 Lancaster Street. I am a resident of Albany. I am a former district employee. I taught for the district for 10 years and at the Career Tech Center as the early childhood teacher. I now teach at LaSalle School. I just give you this background information so you know where I come from. I have custody of 2 of my former students' twins who are diagnosed with autism. They've been with them since they were born, but I've had them since just before COVID. So I'm going to ignore them so I can get through this. I've sat on every committee, from restructuring to magnet to community schools to you name it. been on there. So I have a rich history with the school district. I have a grandson that's already graduated. I have 2 in the pike now, 1 in middle school, 1 in high school. So I'm well acquainted with the district. I came today because I found out a few weeks ago that the summer school program was half days, which alarmed me because they transition very hard. Like, I have to fight to get her on the bus or drive. They have to fight to get her on the bus to come home. Throwing shoes, don't want to go, transition or trauma for children with autism. So I was a little concerned because I can't find a half-day program for them anywhere, which meant I had to make a choice between leaving them in their extended school year or removing them out, which looks like I'm going to have to do now, because I did find St. Matthew's the only program I found that would take them full days. But last week I found out that the Gen Ed K through 5 are in school all day. So needless to say, I kind of blew a fuse when I found that out, because if anybody should be in school all day, they should be in school all day. I understand staffing is an issue. Safety is a concern. They wear GPS trackers because they get out of Delaware Community, which, not mentioning names, but the staff and the teachers there are phenomenal. She started school nonverbal, is 75% verbal. She's fully verbal, started non-reader, and now in February, March, whenever they did it, scored above the New York State kindergarten standards. That's teamwork. So that was my first issue. I'm not looking for a resolve. I just need to make you aware of what I feel is an inequality. The second big issue was at graduation last week, and nobody told me. I'm retired Army, I'm a teacher, and I have ADHD, so I pay attention to everything all the time. I overheard a conversation stating that this twin was being moved in the fall to a different school. I cannot separate them. I barely get them on the bus as it is. So the department's going to help me deal with that. I've requested a meeting. But I have concerns that, my time's almost up, that children who are already at risk, already traumatized with transition, are being forced to transition year to year. I should have hindsight realized that when they started kindergarten and they didn't know where the placement was going to be. And I was actually told they don't know where it'll be next year. I know logistics is hard for the district, been there on the inside. I know that staffing is hard, but there has to be a way for some continuity. We built this district on community school philosophy. So it doesn't do any good for this young lady who's going to go integrated next year to be at Arbor Hill when we're moving next month to the Delaware Community District. We're moving so she could be in her community. And when she gets integrated, she's going to be integrated with kids that she's never going to see except in school. And she won't see her sister. When she goes from her 613 class to go to the 9-1, which we're going to get her there pretty quickly because we're all working hard, now she will have to change schools to do that because there's not a 9-1 in her school. I'm not saying you have to have one in every single school, but somewhere within each quadrant of this city, there should be that opportunity for children to stay within their community as they progress up through the system. And as it stands now, I don't think there's that mechanism. So I wanted to bring that there. I'm going to sit on every committee next year because I'm retiring this August. And I actually was going to work with Dr. Dobbs. I probably still will. I'm working to set up a parent community resource center. But that's something that has to be addressed.
Okay. Understood. And the board, one of the things I should have said is the board doesn't, exchange comments here on the floor.
I understand.
But I would like to have you speak with our superintendent. Either he may step away or we can take your phone number so that he can be in touch with you for follow-up.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting. I just
No,
wanted
no,
to bring it to
I
the
understand.
table.
And it's an important point, and we want you to, we hear you and want you to raise that so that we are now aware and can maybe look to figure some other things out. So if you would leave your phone number for us,
Absolutely.
that would be great. And thank you so much for being here. Okay.
And I kept them in the district because I know this is the best district for them
Yes, ma'am.
to meet their needs.
And thank you. It's a pleasure
Thank you.
meeting your little ones as well. Thank you. In the back there. Thank you. Okay. We now move to the part of our meeting we call routine consent, and during this portion of the meeting, we approve routine matters for the district. These include items like contracts, field trips, personnel matters, and the like. Each board member reviews each item carefully, but we vote on them as a group with no discussion. This allows us to use our meeting time more efficiently. Nonetheless, each board member has the option to set aside any routine consent item to require separate discussion and vote on that item. And with that introduction, I will now entertain a motion to adopt routine consent. All in favor of, a second, a motion made by Dr. Chatour. Let's do that. A second by Mr. El-Manyawi. Are there any set-asides? Seeing none. All in favor of adopting routine consent agenda in its entirety? All in favor? Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Sorry for getting off track there. And next up, we have discussion, actually it's action and discussion of our policy items, and I'll turn that over to Dr. Chatour.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We have two policies for actions. These were the ones that were discussed in the last board meeting. The first one is 6240 investments, which is basically the policy was revised to avoid any gender-specific language. 5030 is student complaints and grievances. The name of this policy was changed to student concerns and appeals, and the language is revised to better describe the process and how the various issues tied to the board policies. May I have a motion to adopt these? Ms. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Mann. All in favor? That's unanimous. So next up, we have a few policies for discussion. The first one is 6671, which is extra classroom activity funds. The policy is going to be renumbered and renamed to 5252 Student Activities Funds Management, because that would be in keeping with NISBA's nomenclature. This policy was reworded to simplify the language and align it to 5210, which is student organizations, especially with the requirement to appoint a faculty advisor and student treasurer for the student organization. The second policy, which ties to this one, is 5210, student organization, and here the only change is to eliminate language around faculty advisors, since that's already included in the previous policy, 5252. And last but not least, the third policy would be 1900, parent and family engagement. This was work done through a committee composed of 17 individuals, including principals, assistant principals, homeschool coordinators, community school site coordinators from various schools, who met on May 15th of this year to review this policy as well as the student parent compact, and then made some revisions. The notable highlights of the changes are that the access to families through the virtual option is now available. There's the addition of a special education parent advisory committee and a provision of translation services to support families in meeting. The full list of the members and the details are also provided in the attached memo from Dr. Cecily Wilson-Turner. So those are the three policies, and then we have the team operations manual. There are two sections. Since Ms. Savage is not here, I'll talk about those. The policy committee also reviewed these sections, and they have been passed through legal. The first one is board committees and advisory committees, and they have some related changes to 2250, which is board committees. Board professional development is section 24, and has some changes to 2521, which is school board conferences, conventions, and workshops. So I want to point out that a few of us attended a NISBA webinar recently, where NISBA talked about the mandated committees that we already have in our district, but there are some additional committees that were presented in terms of, some of them are purely board committees, some of them are board and staff committees, and some are advisory committees. And we are still in the process of looking at those through legal. So we wanted to get this section on there adopted, and then as changes come in from legal, and we can always revise those sections with the new committees that will be created. In the board professional development, really the only change is to make sure that we follow the same rules as we expect of the staff, and any expenses for people going to conferences will be borne by themselves if they sign up for the conference and for an unexcused reason don't go to the conference. So any questions, we can discuss them, or we can discuss them at the next meeting when Ms. Savage will be there with us.
All right. Any questions for Dr. Chatur? Yeah.
That's all I have.
Oh, yes, Ms. Krejci, go ahead.
I just wanted to make the one comment about professional development, that the professional development policy does reference, and the team operations manual does reference policy 6830 expense reimbursement, where we don't currently have that policy in place, but we are working on a policy to put in
Absolutely.
place for that.
Thank you for that.
Very good, thank you.
Policy has been has been really busy.
Yes, I know you have been. The other related thing is to committees. I wanted to point out, you mentioned the webinar that NYSBA provided, and I did send around the materials from that webinar, and I actually want to encourage, especially those of you who are going to be chairing committees, or even for that matter, just because you'll be on a committee, to really look at that document, as it provided some information about how we might want to manage and structure, and the responsibilities also of a committee chair. I just thought it was kind of great info and emphasis that we really hadn't talked about in some places. So thank you all for that. And Dr. Chatur, thank you for both the actions and the discussion on policies. We'd have one more thing to discuss tonight. We will not take action on it, but just one more item to discuss, which is a proposed resolution that the Government Relations Committee seeks to send to NYSBA, that's the New York State School Boards Association, for consideration. A little background here and a reminder: NYSBA's legislative priorities are set by the membership at its annual meeting. We are a member. And submitting a resolution for consideration is the mechanism for suggesting new legislative priorities. We as a board decide what to submit by having the Government Relations Committee review ideas for resolutions as received from board members, staff, or community members. In this instance, the resolution pertaining to early voting came from board member Tabitha Wilson. This resolution and all resolutions are then drafted by the district communications team and submitted for review by the Government Relations Committee, appropriate cabinet members, and other district staff at the direction of the superintendent. So this proposed resolution is up tonight for discussion only and slated for your action at our next meeting, which is July 13th. This resolution, along with the one that we passed tonight, is, in order to meet the deadline, is required to be submitted, approved and submitted to NYSBA on July 14th. Additionally, the Government Relations Committee hopes to add one more resolution to the July 13th board meeting for discussion and action about eliminating punitive aspects of the state's receivership law, which we are still working to finalize. The board will need to discuss and act on that item at the July 13th board meeting to submit to NYSBA by the July 14th deadline. Okay, so colleagues, is there any discussion on the early voting resolution? Ms. Wilson, please.
I won't be long. I'm just happy that it's gone from like the idea to conception to potential resolution. Hopefully it can impact voting participation, which was the goal of sort of suggesting early voting for it to correspond to school board elections also.
Thank you. Dr. Chatur?
Yeah, it was a great suggestion, Ms. Wilson, and I'm so glad we are actually forwarding that to NYSBA. Because there's also the confusion of, that most people have is like, if I can vote in my primaries and everything else as early voting, I should be able to do that for the school board elections and the school budget vote too. So, and the mechanism exists, so we're not asking them to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Very good. Any other comments? Okay. Yes, Ms. Krejci?
Just going to second the comments of my colleagues that it would be really great to encourage more participation and a wider range of voters. The one year where during the pandemic when we were mandated to send ballots by mail to every house. We had the highest level of participation that we've ever had, so anything to make it easier for people to vote, encouraging them to get involved is a great step forward.
That's great. Okay. If there are no other comments to discuss at this time, we will bring this back for action on July 13th. Okay. Very good. Next, we have board committee reports. I don't think, since we had that announcement last week at our board meeting, I don't think there is a need for update. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Ms. Wilson?
Less of a committee, but somewhat. Hall of Fame did meet, and we did our duty for the year. So we look forward to announcing what's forthcoming for that homecoming weekend and who will be our Hall of Fame inductees.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. So let's see. I think we're good on the committee reports. Other business that anyone would like to bring up at this time? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on. And that brings us actually, oops, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We had suggested to NISBAT made it its a legislative priority to ask for debt limits to be changed for the small city school districts.
Okay.
And the legislature has agreed that they'll meet on that, and they'll have to referendum, because there'll have to be a change in the state constitution to do that. And hopefully if that passes later on, then our debt limit would be 10% like everybody else, instead of the more restrictive 4%.
That's great, thank you. And was that just reported on in the paper there? Okay, very good, on our on-board NISBA's document. Thank you very much for that catch, Dr. Chatur. Okay. Okay, so if there's no other business tonight, may I entertain a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law pertaining to ASPDA and the employment history of a particular person leading to the appointment or employment of a particular person. Motion by Ms. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Mann. All in favor? Thank you. That is unanimous, and we will now return to executive session. Thank you, community, and good night.